Hello everyone, today I'll be reading Rainbow Magic, Ruby the Red Fairy. In this video, I'll be reading the first 2 chapters of this book. If you would like to see the rest of this book, please do watch out for my future videos. And now, let's begin. Chapter 1, The End of the Rainbow. "Look, Dad," said Rachel Walker. She pointed across the blue-green sea at the rocky island ahead of them. The ferry was sailing towards it, dipping up and down on the rolling waves. "Is that Rainspell Island?" she asked. Her dad nodded. "Yes, it is," he said, smiling. "Our holiday is about to begin." The waves slapped against the side of the ferry as it bobbed up and down on the water. Rachel felt her heart thump with excitement. She could see white cliffs and emerald green fields on the island, and golden sandy beaches with rock pools dotted here and there. Suddenly, a few fat raindrops plopped down onto Rachel's head. "Oh!" she gasped, surprised. The sun was still shining. Rachel's mom grabbed her hand. "Let's get under cover," she said, leading Rachel inside. "Isn't that strange?" Rachel said. "Sunshine and rain." "Let's hope the rain stops before we get off the ferry," said Mr. Walker. "Now, where did I put that map of the island?" Rachel looked out of the window. Her eyes opened wide. A girl was standing alone on the deck. Her dark hair was wet with raindrops, but she didn't seem to care. She just stared up at the sky. Rachel looked over at her mom and dad. They were busy studying the map. So Rachel slipped back outside to see what was so interesting. And there it was. In the blue sky, high above them, was the most amazing rainbow that Rachel had ever seen. One end of the rainbow was far out to sea. The other seemed to fall somewhere on Rainspell Island. All of the colors were bright and clear. "Isn't it perfect?" the dark-haired girl whispered to Rachel. "Yes, it is," Rachel agreed. "Are you going to Rainspell on holiday?" The girl nodded. "We're staying for a week," she said. "I'm Kirsty Tate." Rachel smiled as the rain began to stop. "I'm Rachel Walker. We're staying at Mermaid Cottage," she added. "And we're at Dolphin Cottage," said Kirsty. "Do you think we might be near each other?" "I hope so," Rachel replied. She had a feeling she was going to like Kirsty. Kirsty leaned over the rail and looked down into the shimmering water. "The sea looks really deep, doesn't it?" she said. "There might even be mermaids down there, watching us right now." Rachel stared at the waves. She saw something that made her heart skip a beat. "Look!" she said. "Is that a mermaid's hair?" Then she laughed when she saw that it was just seaweed. "It could be a mermaid's necklace," said Kirsty, smiling. "Maybe she lost it when she was trying to escape from a sea monster." The ferry was now sailing into Rainspell's tiny harbor. Seagulls flew around them, and fishing boats bobbed on the water. "Look at that big white cliff over there," Kirsty said. She pointed it out to Rachel. "It looks a bit like a giant's face, doesn't it?" Rachel looked and nodded. Kirsty seemed to see magic everywhere. "There you are, Rachel," called Mrs. Walker. Rachel turned around and saw her mom and dad coming out onto the deck. "We'll be getting off the ferry in a few minutes," Mrs. Walker added. "Mom, Dad, this is Kirsty," Rachel said. "She's staying at Dolphin Cottage." "That's right next to ours," said Mr. Walker. "I remember seeing it on the map." Rachel and Kirsty looked at each other in delight. "I'd better go find my mom and dad," said Kirsty. She looked around. "Oh, there they are." Kirsty's mom and dad came over to say hello to the Walkers. Then the ferry docked, and everyone began to leave the boat. "Our cottages are on the other side of the harbor," said Rachel's dad, looking at the map. "It's not far." Mermaid Cottage and Dolphin Cottage were right next to the beach. Rachel loved her bedroom, which was high up in the attic. From the window, she could see the waves rolling onto the sand. A shout from outside made her look down. It was Kirsty. She was standing under the window, waving at her. "Let's go and explore the beach," Kirsty called. Rachel dashed outside to join her. Seaweed lay in piles on the sand, and there were tiny pink and white shells dotted about. "I love it here already," Rachel shouted happily, above the noise of the seagulls. "Me too," Kirsty said. She pointed up at the sky. "Look, the rainbow's still there." Rachel looked up. The rainbow glowed brightly among the fluffy white clouds. "Have you heard the story about the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow?" Kirsty asked. Rachel nodded. "Yes, but that's just in fairy stories," she said. Kirsty grinned. "Maybe, but let's go and find out for ourselves." "Okay," Rachel agreed. "We can explore the island at the same time." They rushed back to tell their parents where they were going. Then Kirsty and Rachel set off along a lane behind the cottages. It led them away from the beach, across green fields, and towards a small wood. Rachel kept looking up at the rainbow. She was worried that it would start to fade now that the rain had stopped, but the colors stayed clear and bright. "It looks like the end of the rainbow is over there," Kirsty said. "Come on!" And she hurried towards the trees. The wood was cool and green after the heat of the sun. Rachel and Kirsty followed a winding path until they came to a clearing. Then they both stopped and stared. The rainbow shone down onto the grass through a gap in the trees, and there, at the rainbow's end, lay an old black pot. Chapter 2. A Tiny Surprise. "Look," Kirsty whispered. "There really is a pot of gold." "It could be just a cooking pot," Rachel said doubtfully. "Some campers might have left it behind." But Kirsty shook her head. "I don't think so," she said. "It looks really old." Rachel stared at the pot. It was sitting on the grass, upside down. "Let's have a closer look," said Kirsty. She ran to the pot and tried to turn it over. "Oh, it's heavy," she gasped. She tried again, but the pot didn't move. Rachel rushed to help her. They both pushed and pushed at the pot. This time it moved, just a little. "Let's try again," Kirsty panted. "Are you ready, Rachel?" Tap, tap, tap. Rachel and Kirsty stared at each other. "What was that?" Rachel gasped. "I don't know," whispered Kirsty. Tap, tap. "There it is again," Kirsty said. She looked down at the pot lying on the grass. "You know what? I think it's coming from inside this pot." Rachel's eyes opened wide. "Are you sure?" She bent down and put her ears to the pot. Tap, tap. Then, to her amazement, Rachel heard a tiny voice. "Help!" it called. "Help me!" Rachel grabbed Kirsty's arm. "Did you hear that?" she asked. Kirsty nodded. "Quick!" she said. "We must turn the pot over!" Rachel and Kirsty pushed at the pot. As hard as they could, it began to rock from side to side on the grass. "We're nearly there," Rachel panted. "Keep pushing, Kirsty." The girls pushed with all their might. Suddenly, the pot turned over and rolled on its side. Rachel and Kirsty were taken by surprise. They both lost their balance and landed on the grass with a thump. "Look," Kirsty whispered, breathing hard. A small shower of sparkling red dust had flown out of the pot. Rachel and Kirsty gasped with surprise. The dust hung in the air above them, and there, right in the middle of the glittering cloud, was a tiny winged girl. Rachel and Kirsty watched in wonder as the tiny girl fluttered in the sunlight, her delicate wings sparkling with all the colors of the rainbow. "Oh, Rachel," Kirsty whispered, "it's a fairy."